So, have you ever found yourself trying to date people and not really feeling sure about how to best approach the whole dating process? On one hand, maybe you take it too lightly and you show up and you're just sort of seeing how it goes and seeing how it unfolds. And on the other hand, maybe you find yourself being too serious at times, like really worrying about every nitty gritty detail of how you show up and trying too hard to fall into certain roles or present yourself in a certain way. And what I would share with you is that either polarity of that has certain downsides to it. And I get a lot of questions about how to consciously date. And so I want to address this specifically for fearful avoidant attachment styles in this video, because I often see that fearful avoidance can kind of polarize on one side or the other and show up in sometimes extreme ways. So let's unpack the first part. Let's just unpack the part about taking things day by day and just seeing how everything unfolds. What are the upsides to that and what are the downsides? Well, the upsides to this are that you can find yourself in a position where there isn't a whole bunch of pressure on the situation or dynamic. You're not thinking too far into the future. You're able to be more present with the dating experience. And you may be able to set your boundaries a little bit better and be more attuned to yourself because there isn't this pressure you're putting on yourself in the background to people please. And all of those things are really important for the dating process. But one thing that is also very important is to be intentional. And I've seen so many times in my practice historically over and over again when people would come and speak with me and say, I've been dating somebody for 2 years and I'm just realizing now I'm not sure if it can work because of X, Y, and Z. And I would unpack X, Y, and Z with them. And I would come to see a lot of the time, like this happened fairly frequently, I would come to see that their X, Y, and Z were actually non-negotiables for them. So maybe somebody would meet somebody and go, I have a good connection with them. There's good chemistry. I find them attractive. We have fun together. So then I go into the relationship for 2 years. And 2 years later, I realize I wanted to have kids. They don't. We're both unwilling to budge. What do I do? And it's not that we don't take learning from those experiences. It's not like the whole, relationship onto that point must have been an entire waste. That's not the case at all. Like, we learn, we grow with people, we take certain lessons away from things. But on one level, if your intention was to settle down and eventually have that, then there is an element to a certain degree of wasting your own time. And I don't mean like everybody has to be on this guiding clock of have everything set up right now. But I mean, you invested in something that ultimately, if you just asked the right questions ahead of time, you would have known earlier that it wasn't going to work out. And you could have spent time investing your time and energy into other areas of your life or potentially meeting different people. So dating without intention has a lot of downsides. And sometimes those non-negotiables are not things as simple as, or as obvious as, kids or not having kids, but sometimes they're about what part of the world we want to live in. Sometimes they're about parenting strategies that people want to have. Sometimes they're about how we want to spend our time and what we believe in terms of relationships. So by knowing your intentions early on, you are more likely to have success. And a few things that I would really try to look at is understanding what your non-negotiables are in dating. So this can look like, if you have a history of, lung cancer in your family, or you had a family member who passed away from lung cancer and that was really hard for you. Maybe a non-negotiable is that you don't want to date somebody who smokes. That's just one example, but it's like these personal things that we know that if we were to budge on, it would be a form of self-betrayal. It would be a form of us going against ourselves. So you really want to know your non-negotiables. That's going to save you a lot of time. On the flip side, you also want to know your standards. So what are the things that are important to you? And in maybe specific cases, you may compromise on, but are still really important to you. So maybe you are somebody who loves to travel and wants to live in many different countries. But if you found the love of your life and that person didn't want to live in many different countries, maybe you could compromise by saying, okay, well, then we both invest our money in taking one amazing trip a year if we can, right? Like things like that. So where can you negotiate if that would be a possibility for you or feasible for you? Of course, that's just a theoretical one, but you know what I mean, right? Hopefully you can see the picture painted. And so you want to know your standards, and then you want to know your preferences. It just helps you be more intentional with dating. What are the things that are the nice to haves, but not really need to haves? needs to have, need to have. And so the more you can be clear about these things, the more you set yourself up for success. Now, on the flip side of that, if this becomes this rigid checklist that you use to keep people away, it could be a form of deactivating strategy, because as a fearful avoidant, you also have that deactivated side. So what you don't want to do is, start like looking to check off all these boxes and not be present in the dating experience. By the way, I have a whole course just about this, like how to master the dating stage of relationships, like all the things, how to set things up. It has a whole bunch of information on each attachment style, what they expect, expectations, how often to text, how often to communicate, all these things, but not from this like how to manipulate people perspective, but like how to attune to yourself and different suggestions and things that increase the ability to have healthy, conscious dating experiences. And you can check that course out for free for 7 days using the link below. That link actually gives you access to everything in PDS. I do 4 live webinars every single week. You can join me. You can ask questions. You can jump in there. Like, I get to tons of the questions throughout the webinar, so you can check in there. And then also we have daily community events, 55 other courses I've written. There's lots of stuff in there if you want to scope it out. So that link is below. Anyways, going back to the other side of this, on the deactivated side, we can take dating way too seriously as individuals and think everything has to be a certain way and have this really rigid checklist. And that ultimately can be your own way of like keeping people at bay. And it can almost be its own form of subconscious self-sabotage, where self-sabotage, there's no real such thing. It's just a subconscious strategy to get different needs met. But it can be like you are trying to meet the need to stay safe and to not open up and not be vulnerable. And so you use that checklist or rigidity in your dating life as a buffer. And if that's the case, a really great thing to do is write out all your stories about dating. What are you so afraid of? The dating stories are covered in that course too, but a lot of people have dating stories like it's too much time. I won't have enough time. I'm not attracted to people easily. I'll never meet somebody. I'll be alone forever. I can't find anybody that interests me. And, we have a lot of these things. And it doesn't mean that there aren't needs around some of those things. Like maybe you're picky and that's okay. Maybe you have specific needs but when you use those stories as things to excuse yourself from trying, that's where we get into self-sabotage territory. So, by surfacing those stories, making them conscious, and then using the tools in that course to reprogram them, you can be more open-minded towards dating. And there's a whole bunch of strategies in that course too that I'll just mention at a high level here for how to, once you know what you want, like your standards, your preferences, your non-negotiables, then to create strategies and action steps for looking for those things in the right places, because I see that's a place where people go wrong too. It's like maybe you grew up and you go to the bar every weekend and that's what but maybe you're looking for somebody who's really interested in personal growth and conscious relationships and, wants to, grow their career and be physically healthy. And maybe you're still looking for those people in the bar because that's how you're used to meeting people, but maybe you have to come up with new conscious strategies to meet individuals like that may be outside of like your usual territory as you're growing and evolving. So anyways, the course covers all those things. I highly recommend it if you're really wanting to like have a better dating experience and have a shift in mindset about dating so that you feel like you're more open to it and excited about it and can see it as a learning process and growth and, a great opportunity to practice communication, practice getting to know yourself and what comes up for you, work through any triggers that are there. So anyways, that course is all of that, but hopefully this gives you some good information as well. And that's it for today. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Please like, share, and subscribe if you are enjoying this channel, and I will see you in the next video.